thank you so much for joining us for another bird talk, but it's actually a bat talk today. So we're in our second year of holding bird talks. Now that our bird talks at Chirp Nature Center are virtual, you can enjoy them at Chirp or from the comfort of your own home. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, and I will introduce you to our bat specialist for today. Her name is Linda Stamer. In 2014, she began to work for Southern California Mountains Foundation and is currently the development director, which means that she writes a lot of grants for trails, highway vehicles, does a lot of restoration, and many surveys. She also manages 7 different volunteer-based programs ranging from children forest education to off-highway vehicle restorations. Needless to say, she is committed to preserving and sharing the beauty of our natural forest with others. And in her spare time, you can find her mountain biking, hiking, and enjoying nature with her family. So I am so excited to introduce you to Linda Stamer. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Linda, and I will stop sharing my screen. And we'll get to see ya. Hey.
Hi. How are you guys?
I am doing great, and I am so excited that you're here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show today. And I'm excited that Chirp wants to share about bats and just share about animals in general to the public here. It's an awesome thing that you do.
Good. Well, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit more, what inspired you to become a wildlife biologist?
I have to say, when I was about 10 years old, my family used to take me camping all over the West Coast. And I decided when I was 10 that I wanted to be one of those driving the green trucks, so working for the Forest Service. And I kind of just always steered myself to the outdoors and to those career opportunities. I worked for the state, the Forest Service for about 18 years, and now the Southern California Mountains Foundation.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I have another question from you. So you mentioned this idea of camping. You have so many jobs and hats that you wear. What is your favorite job?
You know, I have to say, working in this field, most people don't enter this field for the high pay. Not that the pay is lousy, it's definitely livable, but something that I found rewarding was writing grants and being able to kind of be a philanthropist without any money myself. So I can write grants for a project and see it implemented. That's one of the most rewarding things. And getting the public and youth involved in the outdoors is also extremely rewarding. You kind of broke up a little on me, but family time is extremely important to me. That is my ultimate favorite hat, is being a mother to my 3 kids. And of course, spousal support to my wonderful husband, Mark, who is the district ranger on the local forest here. Here we go. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay.
Go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, one of the animals that I got attracted to in college to study was bats. And I think I was interested in studying everything. In fact, I started out as a marine biologist. But quickly learned that fish were pretty stinky and slimy when you have to catch them over and over again in a day. So I started studying mammals and habitats, and bats became quickly my favorite mammal to study. So that is something that people don't often think about, is the classification of animals. But bats are a mammal, just like we are, and they are a mysterious animal to study. A lot of people have dark feelings about them, mostly because they are nocturnal, but they're kind of mysterious, but something I found intriguing. And their sheer numbers are incredible. Bats make up a quarter, sorry about that. Bats make up a quarter of all mammal species. So there's about 1,300 of them known now in the world. And that number is changing all the time. They're discovering new species. But a quarter of all mammals is pretty impressive. The only one that comes close to that is rodents. Rodents also have a lot of species, and bats often are thought of as rodents because they look like little mice. So people think they're flying mice, but they're very intelligent animals, and they're actually closer related to humans than they are to rodents. So that's interesting fact about bats. What I also find interesting is for such a small mammal, they live to about 30 years. So that is incredible for like smaller animals such as rodents often live only 3 to 5 years. And we'll talk about why in a little bit, why they live so long. But there's about, like I said, 1,300 of them, different species worldwide. And there's 47 different species in the United States. So again, that's a pretty good number that we have here. 25 different species in the state of California. And in Big Bear, we have about 20 of those. So 20 of the whole state's amount is pretty incredible. We have a great diversity here in our local mountain. So here's a picture of a mama bat with her pup. This is a Mexican free-tailed bat. So baby bats are called pups. And like I said, mammals, if you remember back to your basic biology, mammals have fur, they nurse their young, they're born live. So a lot of similarities to humans. I bet most of you weren't born with a lot of hair, just like this baby pup. So you could see the mama is kind of covering the baby with her body because the babies aren't born with a lot of hair, but they do have fur like all mammals. And they do nurse their young with milk. So that's, again, a similarity. Most of the babies are born in what's called a maternity colony. So just like most of our mothers went to a maternity ward in a hospital, bats go to a maternity colony or a cave to have their bats together. Now, they do mate in the spring or the fall, but what's really cool about bats, and something I wish that humans can do, is they can hold off on fertilization after they mate until a more convenient time. So they mate in the fall, but they don't have like the actual fertilization till spring. So can you imagine if you're in college, you get pregnant, you're like, it's not really convenient right now, but maybe in a few months it might be. So
that is quite ideal.
Yeah, I kind of think that's pretty cool. Something that hopefully we could learn from them, evolve. But so that's another a really cool thing about that, their ability to do that. But once they do fertilize, from their mating, they actually they have about a 3 months pregnancy, at least the bats in the United States. Some larger bats can take up to 6 months to grow their young in the uterus. But they'll have them all with the females. So the male only has the whole mating responsibility. And then like they have nothing to do with the offspring or the birth of the babies. So mothers will all band together. And again, they're really typically colonial animals. A lot of different species will actually babysit each other's young. So again, a pretty cool evolved animal.
Yeah.
So here's a red bat with twins. So most bats only have one pup per year. And that's really not a lot for a small mammal. Like mice, if you've ever had them in your garden like I do, I think they have babies every other week. It's constant. But bats have a really slow fecundity rate. So that is kind of a bummer about bats, is because they're more vulnerable. They only have one baby per year. So if a colony is wiped out, it takes a long time for them to recover. But here's a red bat with twins. So like humans, typically only one baby per year, but occasionally they can have twins, sometimes even triplets. The red bat here is kind of known for having twins. So another thing, no, my picture isn't upside down. Bats typically hang upside down. And again, another neat adaptation. If we hung upside down, we'd probably get a head rush continuously. But they have a really good venous system that allows the blood to shunt from their head all over their body. But we don't totally know why they hang upside down, but one of the leading theories is they're easily able to drop into flight. So if you're hanging upside down, like a bird typically has to get a running start or a jump start. You'll see coops on Big Bear Lake trying to get a running start before they go into a flight. But this way, a bat can escape their predators by just dropping right into flight. But I can't imagine as a mom hanging upside down by your toenails. Pretty crazy.
Do they also sleep?
They do. They sleep upside down. So, and I told you I'd get back to that later, but that is also a big theory with bats of why they live so long, is because they sleep such a large part of the day. They're typically only active for a few hours during the nighttime. And then if it gets really cold at night, they will shut down for the night and just sleep. So they sleep more than half the day, probably 3/4 of their day. And I think if we did that, we'd probably live a lot longer too. But unfortunately, we can't afford to do that. So here's a Mexican free-tailed bat. Again, a really interesting bat. We didn't know we had in Big Bear until around 2000, when we started getting better acoustical equipment. So we studied bats by trapping them originally because we didn't have good sound equipment. And then software was developed with different bat acoustical recording and identification programs. And then we were able to see a lot of bats that we could never catch before, so we didn't know was present, but now we do. The Mexican free-tailed bat, it goes all the way down to Brazil in South America. So it's also known as the Brazilian free-tailed bat. But again, it's called free-tailed bat because you can see the tail hanging below its tail membrane. And it's kind of a steering mechanism for this bat. This bat can fly up to 60 miles per hour. So pretty incredible feat. Another thing I like about this picture is it really shows the wing structure. The wings are not typical wings, but they are actually an extension of their finger bones. So if you looked at the skeleton of a bat, it looks very similar to, per se, a human skeleton, only if you took our hand bones and stretched them out. So the thumbs are, you can see one of the thumbs, let's see if I can move my cursor here. Here's a thumb sticking out from the top of the wing here and over here. And then finger bones extend down. And this is a really young bat, so its bones are pretty translucent, much like our toddlers. Human toddlers are a lot more bendy than adults. You probably have seen toddlers be able to kind of bend their bones. Yes. And if an adult did that, it would definitely snap. So their bones aren't fully ossified until they're about a year old.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I actually have nieces and nephews. One of them, I think, he just turned 1, and it's pretty incredible how bendy he still is. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And humans aren't born with all their bones fully formed either. Like we don't have kneecaps until we're older. And the same with most other mammals. So this one is no exception. They do learn to fly in 4 to 5 weeks, which again, if you have a 30-year lifespan, that's pretty quick. Like some animals are born and they're able to walk immediately. Bats take 4 to 5 weeks. And humans take about the longest. We take about a year to be fully mobile. Well, I mean, we crawl around before then, but walking doesn't occur till later. So again, they're pretty advanced. And it's important for a bat to learn to fly quickly because of predation. So here is, this is a classic photo. A lot of these photos I got from a famous bat biologist, Merlin Tuttle. And he's given us permission. The Forest Service has worked with him in the past. He's given us permission to use these photos. This is a famous one taken out of the Bracken Cave, where there's known to be thousands of bats. But it's a good picture to think about trying to learn how to fly when there's so many other bats with you. So if you're in a large colony, you have to learn to fly quickly and avoid traffic accidents pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
Like learning to drive on the 405 freeway.
Yeah, that sounds pretty scary. I did. So that actually, there was a question Christopher asked that kind of relates to that picture. He said, are there particular areas in Big Bear where bats congregate?
Definitely a good question. And we'll talk a little bit about habitat in a little bit, but to give you an idea, we don't have a lot of natural caves. Bats do really like crevices and caves, but old mine shafts are pretty popular up here. So they do congregate in mine shafts, but we don't have the colonies of thousands of bats like New Mexico does. We do have colonies of hundreds of bats, and those we try to protect. So that's a really good question. So back to learning to fly, the importance of learning to fly quickly, I mentioned, was predators. And two of the main predators of bats are snakes, believe it or not. Snakes know where a lot of this habitat is, and they will wait on the ground for a baby to fall to the ground, and then they could quickly eat it. So all different species of snakes. And then also, if you think about, I'll go back here. One of the main predators in big bear of bats is something else that's nocturnal, and that would be the owls. So owls, bats I'll talk about again in a little bit, have really specialized hearing, but owls are almost silent when they fly. So they can swoop in and pick a bat out of the sky right at dusk, or dawn for that matter, and easily catch bats. So those are probably the biggest predators of bats. But other bats predators include the coyotes, foxes, even like badgers in some areas where they know of bat colonies where they can easily get them when they fall to the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, and most hawks aren't predators of bats, but there are some hawks that come out later in the afternoon before, typically hawks are diurnal or daily activity, but some of them will try to pick off bats as they're emerging.
They have to be pretty fast to catch bats. That's impressive.
They do. Like I said, some of them can fly up to 60 miles per hour. But bats can be pretty hyper-focused on their prey. So if you're super focused on the hamburger you're going to eat, you're not looking behind you at the mountain lion trying to eat you. So that is probably a big downfall. When they wake up, they're hungry because they've slept all day. I mean, come on, you're hungry when you wake up. And so they'll go out to, get some of their dinner, and then boom, not paying attention, get eaten themselves. Bats can hear though, and can hear very well, and they can see. So you often hear the myth, blind as a bat. Well, bats can see, but if you notice, a lot of bats that eat insects have big ears and very small eyes. So just because they have small eyes doesn't mean they can't see, but it means they use their ears to hunt more than their eyes. So this is a typical bat that we have here in Big Bear. This is a brown bat. And again, you'll notice a lot of different, I'm going to show you different pictures of bats, but you'll notice their facial features, and that really tells you what and how they're hunting. But this guy obviously has small eyes, so he's not really using his eyes much to hunt. He's using his ears.
Wow.
So this is the same bat, but you can tell it's a lot smaller than it looked prior.
Yeah.
Most of the bats in Big Bear are tiny. They could fit in the palm of your hand. Now that said, I try to tell people not to pick up bats. I've had my rabies series, so I can handle bats. But as we've all learned with the coronavirus, bats can carry many different actual viruses and diseases, just like any wild animal can. Bats are known for rabies, but actually there's a lot of species that are more prevalent to carrying rabies than bats. So in that regard, I think bats kind of get a bad rap. But I always tell people, do not handle bats or any wild animals unless you are trained and prepared. They have tiny teeth. They will bite you, but oftentimes you can barely even feel it because their teeth are so small. And they rarely attack humans. Usually, if I've been bitten by a bat, it's because I've picked it up and I'm holding it. And I imagine if a giant picked me up, I would bite it too.
Yes, true.
Yeah, common defense. Here is the smallest bat in the United States next to the largest bat in the United States. So really our bats here in this country are not very large. The larger one is the mastiff bat, and the smaller one is the pipistrelle, the western pipistrelle. And both of them are found in Big Bear. In fact, the mastiff bat is probably the only one you can really hear regularly late at night. So around 9 or 10 o'clock, if you hear this loud pitched like beeping sound almost flying through the sky, it's typically a mastiff bat. So they make an audible sound to us. Most bats we cannot hear. Their frequency is much higher than our hearing. So we talked about different bats in California, Big Bear, in the United States, but worldwide, there's, like I said, many other species. We only have 45 in our country, and there's 1,300 worldwide. There's two different groups of bats. There's Microchiroptera, which are mostly insect eating, and there's Megachiroptera, which is mostly the fruit eating bats and nectar eating bats. So this is a bat, a fruit bat, typically found in Thailand or in Asia. And you can see it doesn't have very big ears. It has big eyes and a very long nose. So obviously it's hunting more with its eyes and its nose than it is with its ears. And we'll talk about how bats hunt with their ears in just a moment. But something cool I wanted to show you about this is I've shown you a lot of bats with tails, and fruit bats do not need tails. The tails are typically used for highly acrobatic bats, bats that fly quickly and are chasing mostly insects. So you have to be a pretty good acrobat to chase after a moth or a mosquito. But when your prey is fruit, you really just need to smell it and land on it. It's not going to run away from you.
That's convenient.
Very convenient. So here's my Batman picture. And I strongly believe that Batman as a cartoon was derived from bats found in Asia. The fruit bats there literally look like flying men with like flying Batman, with their cropped pants and everything.
I see it. I see the connection. I really do.
Right? I know. And you could really see a good skeleton pose here. So he's even got pretty good forceps there. This is Batman. But these bats can get to a length of 6 feet across wingspan. So they're huge bats. And they do look terrifying if you don't know that they eat fruit, not people. So very cool. You can see these bats in India and throughout Southeast Asia.
Wow.
So again, bats worldwide, many have totally different faces, facial features, like I said, and body types, depending on what they hunt. This is also a fruit bat found in South America, but it has its cheeks like a squirrel stuffed with fruit and seeds. So the benefit of that is that they can spit out or poop out their seeds as they fly along and help regenerate rainforests.
Oh, so they're thoughtful eaters.
I don't know if they planned it that way, but we'll go with that. But they are very smart animals. This is the mastiff bat that I mentioned. It's the largest bat in the United States. Very strange facial features here, but you can tell it has very specialized ears, small eyes, so it can see, but it's not its primary source of navigating. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute. This is the hoary bat. This bat is also pretty cool. It can migrate from Big Bear to Hawaii. So they have one of the longest migration routes of any bat known in the world. They have really big ears, and you can see this inner ear. If you stick your finger kind of in your ear, you find a cartilage flap, and that is called a europatagium. And bats are highly specialized europatagium to filter out sound. And you'll see a lot of hair in the ear that, again, like specializes in filtering sound. So highly specialized ears, so it can hunt small insects. But a pretty good nose too. So, but mostly it's hunting with its ears. So this is actually the only native mammal to Hawaii, but it's also found in Big Bear. Now this guy looks ridiculous to us. I call him the flying Dumbo of the forest, but really very specialized and probably looks pretty sexy to other bats. Like, look at those big ears. I bet he can hunt so good. But this is the spotted bat, and he's very elusive bat. One of those that I've never been able to catch, but I could hear them on our acoustical equipment. But the spotted bat has giant ears, and that Europatagium is just fantastic, sticking out there. So, but an incredible hunter. Again, elusive, but found in our forest. This is another bizarre looking bat we have here in Big Bear. This is the ghost-faced bat. I think it's called ghost face because you really can't tell where its face is, poor guy. But the interesting thing, and you will get this in your owl talk probably too, is the shape of its head is like a circle or a ball, which also helps filter sound out like a satellite dish. So his ears are off-centered like an owl. Owls' ears are slightly off-centered so they can triangulate in on their prey better by their sense of hearing. So you'll see one of his ears up here is kind of higher than the one down here. Its whole head is working like a satellite dish to filter in that sound. And the poor guy just doesn't win the pretty contest, but he's an obviously great hunter. Hunting is. So this bat comes onto our forest occasionally at very lower elevations towards cactus flats and further out. But this is actually a nectar-eating bat. This is called the leaf-nosed bat. It does look kind of like it has a leaf on the end of its nose. So again, you keep hearing me repeat it, but small ears, big eyes, and a big nose structure. So this guy really hunts by smell more than anything, and he's hunting nectar.
Wow.
Yes, so I keep talking about how bats are hunting by sound, and you've all probably heard that bats echolocate. That is kind of their known sixth sense. But really, they don't just make this large, high-pitched sound that bounces off of things, but they're able to calculate it in a matter of seconds. So it's like doing physics on the fly. They're calculating how far their prey away, how far their prey is away from them, how fast it's flying, how fast they're flying, and how they have to make up the difference. So they're highly intelligent animals. Let's see if this sound works for you guys. Okay, so
is it supposed to sound like that?
So like I mentioned, the smaller bats have such a high, they operate on such a high megahertz that we cannot pick it up. But using a bat detector, we can hear the sound through our bat detector. So that's filtered for us to hear, but that is a feeding buzz. So you'll hear a bat make a little pitched sound here and there when they're flying through an area, especially the mastiff bat. You'll hear kind of like a beep and then a beep because they're flying through an area. So they're trying not to hit trees and whatnot. But when they are zeroing in on their prey and getting closer and closer, they do what's called a feeding buzz. It gets faster and faster. And that's what you just heard, was them echolocating and doing a feeding buzz. Like I'm honing in on it. I'm gonna eat it.
Wow.
Did we have a question?
Actually, there are a lot of questions coming in. If you want to take a little bit of time, I saw someone rose their hand. If you're going to raise your hand in the Zoom event, actually go ahead and post your question in the chat. It's probably the most effective way that we can get those questions from you. But there was a question. Let's answer like one right now, and then we'll keep going,
Sure.
Kind of keep it smooth.
And I apologize. I'm talking so fast. I just have so much I want to share with you.
No, I'm having a great time. Post in the chat if you're having a great time, because I'm learning so much. This is awesome.
I'm so glad.
Our friend Sarah asked, she says, I've seen a lot of bats in the zoos. Do you know what type bat zoos like? What type
Okay, so there is probably, depending on which zoo, like the San Diego Zoo has a lot of fruit bats from other countries, like I showed you, because they're just so big and unique. that's something that they want to share with people in this country. Our local zoo typically has some of the smaller bats, like big brown bats. We call them big brown bats, but again, I could fit it in the palm of my hand easily. And those are mostly because they've come in to be rehabbed. So our local zoo is awesome with just rehabbing any local species they can find. So I don't know if that helps, but I think some of the big fruit bats are kind of like the mega flora of bats are more exciting to some people than some of the smaller bats.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, let's do one more question and then we'll keep on keeping on.
Of course.
Let's see. Oh, Christopher asked, fertility replacement rate? Question mark.
Replacement rate. So again, once a bat is fully mature, so over 1 year, they can actually mate and have offspring. So pretty quickly into their lifespan, like thank God my teenagers, aren't having babies now. But so bats can have babies after a year of age, typically into their second or third year. But again, only one baby per year. So again, if they lose that baby or something happens, then they're kind of out of luck until the next fall when typical mating season is. I don't know if that answered your question right, Chris. Hopefully.
Sounds good to me. And if he has a follow-up question, he can post it in the chat for the Q&A session. So yeah, let's keep going. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome. So I mentioned bat detectors, and these are kind of old-fashioned, but this is what we started using in the late 90s, mid 90s when I started studying bats. Again, it's just a frequency, like actual converter. So it converts the frequency of bats in the skies to something that we can hear, and it makes that strange clicking sound. I don't know if you guys could hear that.
Yeah.
And some of them, different species have different trademark noises that they make and different frequencies. So some of them are in like the 50 to 80 range, and some of them are higher. Some of them are, quote, squeakier, and some of them are deeper sounding. So, and you get to know what you're listening to the more you study them. But now there's a lot of great software out there that just tell you right on your screen, yes, this is a fringed bat, or so it's kind of cheating, but we'll take it. And here's a big brown bat coming in for the kill using echolocation. I like to show this slide because you can see its front teeth. So they have very sharp teeth. Again, they're so small they can barely break our skin, but it also has that tail membrane. So another thing I didn't really talk about, I mentioned briefly, is fruit bats don't need that tail membrane because they're not doing as much acrobatics. So these guys are flying and mostly catch their prey on the wing. Like that would be like us running and trying to catch hamburgers in our mouth as we're running. It's really hard to do, but bats are really proficient at that. And if they miss their mouth, they have the tail membrane that they could scoop up the prey in their tail and put it in their mouth while they're flying. So pretty acrobatic.
Wow.
So again, here's this tail membrane. You can see the actual tailbone coming down. The tail membrane is called a urapatagium. And I think I might have messed up earlier. I might have said that. I think I did. Maybe I didn't. The flap in your ear is called a tragus, and the tail membrane is a urapatagium. I might have messed that up.
It's okay. We forgive you. It's
did.
all new to me, so this is great.
So I could make up things and you'll believe. I don't want to do that. I apologize. It's been a really rough week, and so I might be messing some things up. But I love the fact that they use their tail for acrobatics and for catching their food. The pipistrelle bat is fantastic hunter. Again, look at the ears on that thing. And this bat actually really is proficient at catching larger insects like grasshoppers, katydids, and even can get on the ground and capture scorpions. So the pipistrelle versus the pallid bat, the one prior, sorry. Here we go. Back. This is the pipistrelle. Again, larger insects, but the pipistrelle can also eat scorpions, but the pallid bat is so interesting. This one regularly eats scorpions. It doesn't always use echolocation. It just uses those giant ears to hunt and just listen. That's the interesting thing. Again, it was hard for us to find that we had these on our forest because they don't make a lot of sound. They just listen. And they're pretty immune to the scorpion stings that we are. And another cool thing is when you try to catch them, they emit a really strong odor like a skunk. So a great defense.
Talented.
So I talked a lot about what bats are eating and where in the world they're eating. But in our country, the majority of bats are insectivore or insectivorous. So they're eating insects. A few of them are nectar eaters or even fruit eaters as you get closer to Mexico. But the cool thing about insect bats is how many pests they could eat for human benefit. So like the pests that are eating our crops. Typically before you get to the stage, you have the moths. So they're eating moss. They could eat 1,200 mosquitoes in an hour. So they have voracious appetites. They eat close to their body weight in a night. Huge metabolism. That's incredible. If I tried to eat that, I would probably die in the process. But if coronavirus stays around, I might try that. But anyway, so if you're thinking 1,200 mosquitoes in an hour, think about what 1,000 bats can do. They eat literally tons of mosquitoes in an hour and nightly. So it really helps reduce our pests in our nation, which helps us grow crops and actually just coexist with insects. So another thing that they eat, like I mentioned, is nectar. This is a Mexican long-nosed bat. So found closer to the Sonoran Desert, so a little bit further towards Palm Springs and further out. But again, you'll notice it has the large thumbs here at the top and no tail membrane. So it's not really acrobatic. It's got a longer nose, larger eyes. So this guy is going after the nectar in a lot of our cactus.
Wow.
Here he is honing in on a saguaro cactus bloom. So he'll go all the way in, stick his whole head in that. Pretty incredible. And a lot of these flowers bloom, are nocturnal blooming. So they're like really specified for bat pollination. So this guy's getting pollen all over his head. Again, Merlin Tuttle took these pictures. They're phenomenal.
Wow.
Pollen all over his head, and then he's going to fly off and he's going to pollinate the next flower. So look at all that yellow pollen on his head. So they're really beneficial to the Sonoran Desert, to agave plants, the saguaro cactus. They're dependent on bats for pollination. So, and sadly, this bat is federally threatened. So if it does go extinct, then what will happen to all those plants that define our Western desert landscape, such as the saguaro here?
Wow. So
And-
while we're talking about while we're talking about interesting bat noses, Jen asked, I'm curious why some bats have super ornate looking noses or face shapes. Is that just to help them smell?
Yes, absolutely. So if you were able to watch the talk on flying squirrels, like they have huge eyes compared to regular squirrels because they're nocturnal. So they try to see at night. But if you are echolocating at night, you don't need huge eyes. You mostly just need huge ears so you can hear better. So it's really how they hunt. And the long nose, a lot of those bats are hunting with the sense of smell. So it really depends on how you're hunting. And then this guy here is a plant that is very famous for a lot of adults who enjoy tequila, because the agave plant makes tequila. And without bats, we would not be able to enjoy that beverage. And there you have it. There's the Mexican long-tongued bat. Again, another really specialized facial structure. like you asked about, to pollinate the plant and get its nectar reward. So the whole habitat is really specified to these bats pollinating their flowers.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I mentioned how some of the fruit bats are excellent at spreading seeds. So that's really important if you have like a large scar in the forest of the rainforest. You'll have bats that eat the fruit seeds and are able to disperse them as they fly away, either through their mouth or through their poop, unfortunately. But if you think about a seed dropping in a pile of fertilizer, that's extremely beneficial for the landscape. So in the rainforest, they're doing an incredible job of trying to restore the rainforest, even though they probably didn't plan that. They are great little restoration biologists. So here's another picture of the rainforest. So that doesn't happen in our forest because our forest aren't, our forest seeds, our tree seeds are not spread by bats. They are mostly wind pollinated. So, but it does really help in Central and South America and Australia and a lot of other countries. Like Africa, South America, Asia, and Australia all have these fruit bats that are extremely beneficial to their landscape. So that's another reason why I like to spread the word about the benefits of bats, because it really worries me that people are afraid of them and therefore try to kill them. Here's another fruit bat. So again, you can see the pollen all over its face, and that is a banana tree. So a major pollinator of bananas, guavas, a lot of other fruits that we eat. What are those? Not pineapples.
Papaya?
Papaya, thank you. I told you I'm having a rough week. I love this guy though. This guy looks so cute here, but giant eyes, a bigger nose. So he's smelling kind of rotting fruit. This one likes rotting fruit. It's more ripe, easier for them to eat, and they quickly spread the seeds across the forest.
Wow.
Here are some of the products that are totally known by bat pollination. Again, we have tequila, we have guava, we have bananas. There's some chicle in there, some gum trees, allspice, a lot of different, even avocados, they can help. Not really in this country, again, avocados aren't native here, but where they are in Central South America, they're a big pollinator there. And so a lot of different species really depend on bats as their main pollinator. So we talked about some of the benefits of bats and what they eat and their facial structures, but some of the really cool outlier bats that I've found in studying bats, in India, there's a fishing bat. So they use echolocation to catch small fish. Frog-eating bats, also in Southeast Asia. And they echolocate to use them. And this is the most notorious bat of them all. You guys will recognize. This is why bats get such a bad rap coming into Halloween season, very appropriate. But the vampire bat. So there's 3 different species of vampire bats. They are not found in the United States, very close to the border though. So in Mexico and Central and South America. They're not extremely prevalent, but the vampire bats are freaky looking and they do suck blood. They don't typically prefer humans. We're scary to most animals. But this is the actual size of that scary animal. That's a chicken foot. So typically they'll fly around and find some livestock, which are typically bred to be kind of stupid, sadly. Chickens especially. Chickens will bring these underneath them like a chick, and the bat will feed under it and then fly away. It's like, really? You didn't see that coming? But not scary, but like any wild animal, it could, transmit disease. The cool thing is vampires do not suck your blood like the movies tell us they do. They actually make an incision on the animal with their teeth, and they have anti-coagulant in their saliva, so it makes the blood run, and they lap it up. So you can see its tongue right here, just lapping up the blood. They've actually studied this anticoagulant and used it for heart patients. So there you go. There's a benefit to vampire bats too.
Wow.
So here are some long-eared bats in Big Bear. We talked about what they're eating, but where did they live? In Big Bear, typically our bats live under bridges, in attics of old houses, and in mine shafts. So they really prefer caves. We don't have a lot of natural caves, but we do have a lot of mine shafts. So they will congregate in mine shafts. This again is Bracken Cave in Texas, so very popular bat cave. And these are all bats that look like barnacles all over the cave walls. So at least 20,000 free-tailed bats roost in that cave, which is incredible. I'd love to see that. The Western Mastiff bat doesn't really like caves. It likes to roost on cliffs. This is what I call the skunk bat. This is the silver bat. It does look like a skunk, but it prefers to roost in the bark of trees. And the big brown bat really likes human structures. So I find them under bridges and in old Forest Service cabins. If you have bats, you can just call me and I'll help you with that. One of the cool things, Congress Bridge in Texas, it was accidentally built perfect for bat habitat. There's a lot of cracks, not cracks, I should say, little crevices that they were man-made in the structure of, or not purposely made, but bats just love these little crevices. And so now it's home to probably close to 1 million bats. So every night in Austin, Texas, you can go on the Congress Bridge and see like close to 1 million bats emerge. And they eat a ton of mosquitoes. If you've ever been to Texas, you want that. They have giant mosquitoes there. So I know I'm running out of time, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about bats hibernate. Typically, they either migrate, hibernate, or they just live in a better climate. But in Big Bear, they typically hibernate. Some of the cool ones can hibernate solo and drop their body temperature down to where we would be dead, like down to 20 degrees in some cases, and still be able to survive, which is incredible. I would probably die in 30 seconds. Some of them do roost in groups. So they're really vulnerable during the winter. So if people enter their habitat and wake them up from their slumber, it could kill them. Because an animal hibernates with a stored amount of energy. And if you wake that animal up during hibernation, then it has to burn through some of their stored energy and they might not make it through the winter at that point. So, and they're in a deep sleep or estivation period. So they are very vulnerable and it's unfortunate. We've had people, do mine shaft exploration in the winter and kill whole colonies of bats. So you'll see some places around the forest where we have put gates over old mine shafts, not just for people's safety, but important maternity colonies for bats or hibernation roosts as well. So these are some of the areas that we have found. Again, spread the word, do not disturb bats while they're sleeping. I mentioned the hoary bat, forget Big Bear, I'm going to Hawaii for the winter. Smart bat there. So some migrate, and then some just live in the warmer elevations, and then they can hunt all season long, so that, like the yellow bat.
Wow.
So a lot of times people ask me how to get them out of your house. You need to be really careful with that, because if you have a maternity colony in your attic and you get all the mothers out, you're leaving all the babies to starve to death. So most people with common decency don't want that. But I'm with you. I don't want bats in my attic either. So there's safer ways. Like if you wait until probably late June or July to remove bats, they're past their maternity where they've been nursing, and now all the bats can fly. And you can put up a one-way trap where they can crawl out and they can't get back in, like what I have this picture here.
Uh-huh.
And then if a bat's totally out at dusk, the whole colony's out, you see them fly out, then you can quickly go in and patch up the hole. So we've done a lot of nighttime clandestine operations as well. Again, some benefits, the more bats we have, the less pesticides we need to use. Pesticides are actually one of the causes of bats declining as well, because we're poisoning their food source, and basically ours too. Another cool benefit of bats is it's fantastic fertilizer is their guano. So yes, if you think your job stinks, these
Thanks,
poor
Amy.
women in Thailand are harvesting bat poop, but we pay a lot of money for it here in the United States for fertilizer. So I mentioned a lot of bats don't have rabies, but again, you should never handle bats or any wildlife for that matter. And I just invite you all to help spread the word of the benefits of bats. There's things you can do, put up bat shelters, bat houses, and just sharing what you know is most important. There's a lot of diseases going around right now too, the white nose syndrome that's killing off thousands of bats. Their habitat is being reduced. And now, like with the coronavirus, there's probably an additional panic of bats nearby because they believe that bats can harbor many different viruses, including coronavirus. So I'm hoping that humans recognize their benefit and don't just kill them all out of fear. And like I said, you could help fund bat gates or help put them up in mine shafts. This is a famous bat gate in Tennessee, huge mine, but one of the most important habitats in the world for certain bats. So I invite you all to help spread the word, and I am opening up to questions. A lot of these bat photos I got from Bats of America, which Merlin Tuttle is a huge founder of, and that they do have like donations and they fund a lot of research across the world. I was able to visit one of their labs in India. So Bat Conservation International is one of the best bat protection conservation agencies out there.
Wow.
But enough of me blabbing. I probably missed a lot and would love to have you have some questions.
That was awesome. So go ahead and stop sharing your screen if you could. Then we can see your lovely face as we ask some of the audience questions.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So I have them coming in on all channels. So let's start with,
Sorry.
oh no, this is great. This is so awesome. So have biologists been able to quantify the impact of the white noise syndrome on the bat population?
Yes and no. I don't honestly think they know the full extent, but they know that they've caused like basically a colony collapse, much like bees in this country. So it did come from another country. We believe it came in as a soil pathogen off people's shoes, and a lot of cave explorers just unknowingly probably spread it from cave to cave. And it does cause like a respiratory issue with the bats. So it is causing huge damage to colonies. They know that there's been hundreds of thousands of bats killed in this country, and they've tracked it moving across the United States. It's probably in California already. We don't know for sure, but we're pretty sure it's probably here. But it's devastating. So
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Good question. Okay, here's another one. What is the common ancestor of bats? A possible gliding mammal?
Very good question. So I have heard that there's other animals like voles and shrews that can echolocate, and they believe there has been a linkage to fossil records of something like a vole or a shrew that led into gliding animals and then eventually flying. So like your flying squirrel is often called a flying animal. It's not a true flyer, it's a glider. Bats are one of the only true flying mammals. So, and they believe it did come from a vole or a shrew fossil or record.
Oh. And so we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask one more question. This is a very important one. Kim asked, how can a city provide habitats for a bat?
Very good question. So something that the Forest Service did kind of on an experimental range is we had years ago, Boy Scouts build just basic bat boxes, and we put them all over the Discovery Center so we could monitor them all around the trails. And now most of them are mostly falling down. But what we did see is every single one of them was inhabited. So if you put them on the sunnier side of your property or on a tree, and you have to put them pretty high up, so like domestic cats can't reach them, they are effective. So adding that habitat is one of the best things you can do, and also preserving habitat. If you know of a good cave, you can keep it open to bats, but closed to people. If it's too much of a temptation for people to go in it, you can put those metal slats on so bats can come in and out and people can't. So preserving habitat is probably the best thing we can do.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Linda, for joining us today. I hope all of you out there learned a lot. I definitely did. And I just have a few more bits of information for our audience. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
We will see you on the other side.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us here at Chirp Nature Center. Here's the super exciting part. So we have learned so much about bats today. It is time to test your knowledge. So you can go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz, or there's going to be a direct link to the quiz in the chat that you're currently watching. So you can click on that link once the presentation is done. It's maybe like 2-3 minute quiz. And here's the fun part. By taking this quiz, you could be entered in to win a grand prize, which is a mini bat box. So not only are you taking the quiz, learning a lot about bats, but by taking this quiz, you are helping get a chance to help preserve the bat population. So that's pretty cool. And also, just as a thank you from us here at Chirp Nature Center to you, everyone who takes the quiz will be receiving a free pigeon sticker. Now, this is awesome because this is a new sticker, not yet sold in stores. So this is one of a kind. And it says, "I'm neither an early bird or a night owl. I am a prematurely exhausted pigeon." And I'm sure a lot of us can probably relate to that right now. So go ahead, take the quiz. You can go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz or click on the link that is in the chat box. And don't forget, you only have 24 hours to complete this. So I would go ahead, take that quiz, and you are all set. Now, just to remind you, we do have virtual events that happen throughout the month. Our next upcoming virtual event is part of our how-to series, all about how to do backyard birding, right? So we're going to talk about the seed that you need for your backyard birds. That's on September 23rd coming up. It's at 4:00 p.m. We also have our final virtual bird walk of the 2020 season. That is October 14th, and it's going to be pretty awesome. And we have our virtual bird talk. Linda mentioned how owls also are predators of bats. Well, we're going to talk all about owls on October 17th with another guest speaker, so make sure you don't miss out on that. Again, all of our information can be found at chirpforbirds.com. And here are a few more ways you can come hang out with us. So we're located in Big Bear Lake, California. But feel free. You can call us. You can email us. You can also go to our website, chirpforbirds.com, and you can connect with us. We have a Facebook site, a Twitter site, and an Instagram. That way you are completely connected and able to join us on many of the virtual events coming up. So again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Now go ahead and test your bird brain. You can go to chirpforbirds.com/quiz or click that link below. Again, thank you guys so much, and we hope that you have a wonderful evening.